Here's the picture where it says, who wants to change, who wants change. Okay, so if we're going to take this more center view world on the world, we probably want to see and understand this idea called deism. If we're going to use another ism like the Tao to understand more alongside what is a balanced way to view life, let's just understand what deism is about. I'm not saying again that this is perfect in any way, but again, it's reassuring that nature is the answer to the regard of unifying humanity. Okay, this is not necessarily even considered a religion to some. I don't consider this stuff religion. If anything, I consider it as unifying factors. Religion could either mean unifying or restrictive, frankly. And I think this is a unifying factor, which is why I'm sharing it. Okay, it says here, belief in a single creator based on reason. Okay, so we see how powerful that is as the first step. So, okay, first of all, that makes sense. A creator based on reason, because in order to create, you need to use your mind, right? You need to have this consciousness. Okay, then it says, the order and complexity of nature in the universe make God self-evident. So, nature is being the art of God, as we've previously discussed. Okay, showing proof of God. Essentially, it is the blueprint. It is the tools, the comings of such. Okay, then it says God's full nature is incomprehensible due to limitations of the human mind and language, which again, you don't want to necessarily put limitations upon yourself, but our nature has a role in nature, so it's something to understand. We have here, God gave humanity reason and conscience so we could develop our own moral and ethic principles. Okay, so we need to understand what is the objective and moral and the non-objective morality. We're going to see a more refined version of this deism, because I think this slide, I'm getting these pictures from all over the place. I'm just trying to find what ones may help you best expand your mind upon this knowledge. Okay, this one says human beings should be free to find, know, and worship God in their own way. All views of God should be respected so long as they do not cause harm or oppress the views of others. So again, a non-aggression principle. Many people say the founding fathers of America were actually deists. Not Christian or any of this other stuff, but actually deists at heart, because they may have, believed in God and so forth, but they believed in God through these terms. For even a lot of their writings talked about the natural law, as we have discussed and seen, right? So then it says all human beings are created equal under God with the same natural rights, which we all see. We're all under natural law, so we can very well agree to much of this. You even have this picture here. It says, my religion is nature. That's what arouses those feelings of wonder and mysticism and gratitude in me. Okay, so the sense of journey, the sense of wanting to do better, the sense of being present, which is gratitude, right, is embracing the present and moving on for the future, through understanding yourselves and taking everything in. This is the beauty of it. The religion is nature, and this is not something that, isn't said often, because it's something that is said often, I'd say, in many individuals who seek to understand this world and want to unify others and have studied a lot of this stuff even. You have that as a quote is by Oliver Sacks. This picture says, what is deism? It says the possibility for everyone to discover natural laws through their given power of reason. Okay, so again, looking at this, like the Tao, we're going to go through like different examples of what, multiple different pictures like to say is deism, and I think they're pretty good examples of this ideology, which again is of the mind. It's getting down to the premises of what is the mind of Taoism, what is the mind of deism. Can we learn from that for nature? And we see that the Tao is known as the way of nature, and then we see deism is essentially this belief in nature and natural law to our connection with God. You have here, quote, this is my Sunday morning church. This is what makes me feel close to God. No walls, no crowds, just me, my dog, and everything God created. Okay, so again, you may want to say Buddha, whoever it may be. Look, I showed different forms in here. And even in the first documentary, you might have seen that all the different religions can agree upon one thing, and that is the golden rule. That is the natural law. You can make connections between all these different showings I'm bringing to you here, but it's all very important that we understand that we can all feel good in this environment. We can all feel good with each other and with the things that we are literally born to have. We want to change that and say that that's not even viable anymore. It's not even an option. Like, that's not true. What we have here in nature is beautiful, and we see it on a day-to-day basis if you accept it and you actually go to it. And when you really open your mind to it, it's like, wow, okay, well, yeah, this is my church. I don't need to be in some fancy place to pray. I could pray anywhere. I could meditate anywhere. I could do yoga. I could breathe. I could focus. I can relax. I could be present anywhere, right? That's often a common thing, often said too, within those crowds, okay? And so it says no walls, no crowds, just me, my dog, and everything God creates. So just having fun, being yourself, just living your life. This is all it really needs to be. And again, if you don't think it's possible, then you don't think it's possible, and that's the very problem with the world, is because you think that it isn't possible. You have to first think that it is possible, because I know it's possible when we set our minds to it. You see how powerful our minds are. See, this picture, it says Deism, peace of mind through reason. So, okay, we see this very great power of reasoning, as we've seen with understanding and knowledge. And the innate knowledge of the universe is often what this is dealing with. When we refer as somebody as a deist or a deism, we're just referring to that as God. Like, usually deism is just another word for God in some cases. So, you can have different ways of looking at this as well, but the understanding of the premises here is that we can do this, no matter what you think. We can do this, but it does matter what you think, because you have to think that we can do this. You have to have faith in it, and you have to understand why it is that we can. Looking at, okay, the golden rule and the non-aggression principle, that's pretty much it. Okay, do we need much else? Because that's really all we need to live in a just society. We understand that. We understand that statism is bad and should never, manifest in our reality, and that's it. Nature's the answer. Simple. All those things are of nature. It's of understanding nature. See, even this quote says, we do not see nature with our eyes, but with our understandings in our hearts. Okay, so not necessarily even the brain and the mind, because again, the heart is really important here. Love is often referred to as the answer. So you have this, a quote by William Hazlitt. So we do not see nature with our eyes, but with our understandings in our hearts. With our understandings, which is essentially, people want to refer that as the mind. So with our minds, with our hearts, with our whole embodiment, with our whole health, with the whole universe, we understand our whole self. With our whole self, we understand the whole universe because of this reflection. And so we just see the beauty of the world through such ways, and that if we want to see nature, we want to see and understand the truth, live with it. It's not just with our eyes, it's with our full embodiment, full life, living in accordance, in alignment, in harmony, as we've seen all things living in harmony, to truly live in peace, to truly live in freedom, to truly live in all of that which is the positive expression of natural law. And even Isaac Newton can create more positive reinforcement around the idea that nature is pleased with simplicity, which we've been talking about as a key factor here. And if you wanted another quote to sum up everything that I've been talking about around what's happening externally in our environment, in our society as a whole, the manifestation of what people are thinking about, that's what they're creating, this quote puts it together really quite well. It says, quote, we never noticed the beauty of nature because we were too busy trying to recreate it. We were trying to be God, okay? We were trying to be nature, when in reality we need to work with nature. This is the answer. That's why nature is the answer, not us. That's why we don't lead, like myself, I don't lead the NIDA movement, okay? Like, that doesn't exist either. Okay, we all do, because we are all of nature, and the beauty is that we all pitch in. Because remember that you are the answer as well to this. We are change, nature's the answer. These are universal concepts that could be applied with reasoning, with understanding. So you have here, quote, I go to nature to be soothed and healed, and to have my senses put in order. A quote by John Burroughs. Right? Senses put in order, right? From the innate dangerous freedom. We bring order to our lives, and it teaches us, it heals us, it soothes us, because we're taking in even the bad bacteria. We're making our immune system stronger. We're becoming better people, understanding right from wrong, having different encounters in life, understanding trial and error, because we're able to try, and we're able, with that freedom, we have the motivation, the destiny to do so. We're not discouraged by others or pushed on to things by others. Of course, we will still be influenced by society, but we will not be pushed under agendas from which is coming from the government or from large institutions that do not align themselves innately with the natural law. It says here, quote, "For most of history, man had to fight nature." Okay, man has had to fight nature to survive. In this century, however, he is beginning to realize that in order to survive, he must protect it. And that's the point, is we're always going to have, conflicts in life. It's natural to have conflicts in life and with nature to some extent. But now we realize that we've tried to rule over nature, to try to rewire this blueprint, this natural law into man's law, into man's medicine, into man's whatever it may be, and we're trying to change it. Okay, and so it's not even that we realize we have to protect it, but when we realize how much harm it's doing, then yeah, we realize how much we have to protect it. We realize that, oh my gosh, okay, the oxygen is depleting. Oh my gosh, we're running out of resources. Oh my gosh, we're not feeding enough people. Oh my gosh, all these problems are happening when they're easily solved through methods and understandings of nature. And yeah, I'm serious about that, because we're trying to survive here, because that's just part of human nature. But then there's this extreme crowd that says, okay, well, we can do more than survive. We can rule over everybody, and we can rewire this entire planet as we choose, so we can greater our chances at survival. Meanwhile, they're destroying the planet in order to do so. Does that make any sense to anybody here who understands simply nature and the fact that it is here to provide for us? We're not here to provide for ourselves. We're here to get providings from nature and understand how to get those providings, right? Like how you have to open up a nut or a seed in order to eat it, right? There's different ways to do that, and that took ways of learning, and then we just took that to the extreme and said, okay, well, what if we took this, brought it to a lab, and then did this, and oh, well, what if we understand the molecular compound of this, and we're able now to manipulate and imitate the effects of nature, so that way we may be God and we may be nature. Even if people don't think that's the case, it is becoming the case because of how they're accepting it, how they're accepting that as their belief system, they're accepting that as their authoritative practice. Okay, so what are you practicing? What are you obligating to yourself? What are you entering into your life? What are you accepting into your life? This is the question. I typically like this photo too because of how it talks about literature, and you may be able to reflect this upon society as well. It says here, you had in classical literature, you had man versus nature, okay? And then modern, it was man versus society, and then postmodern is man versus technology. So right now we're obviously man versus society, so we're right there in the middle of this picture here. And if we continue going along where we are, it's man versus technology. Now, even if we do get rid of government, perhaps we may still have to worry about technology, but we have eliminated most of the burden, actually, by eliminating government, because again, I consider technology the second government, according to simply the nature of how technology often works on the human mind and what it's been giving to the human brain. So technology is this beautiful thing. Like, I consider a computer like one of the greatest inventions ever known. But that being said, I mean, that comes with an ironic downfall, right? The greatest nation in the world could also be the one that does the most harm. That's what I like to say. So you have this great irony. I think the most popular candidates in the world will probably be the most controversial, right, in politics, I'm saying. And so, generally speaking, people need to change themselves, and that's why you see here in modern society you also have man versus self, where postmodern is man versus reality. So right there is where we're particularly looking at man versus self and man versus reality. That is very, very big. Okay, and if you look here on the left, you have man versus man and classical. We need to get over this fighting with each other, because that has just continued, and it's continued through fighting ourselves as well, because we see that if we're fighting ourselves, then essentially we're going to want to fight everybody else. So especially, going to the postmodern age, if we see, we're versus technology, we're going to want to search for reality. So we're not going to perhaps wonder what reality is. You see, like, the city in the background is, like, weird. You see, like, the ground is, like, out of dimension. And that's all there for a reason. You see exactly, like, the way that they picture it, too. You see man versus man, it's like a castle. Man versus self, you see a city. And you see man versus reality, which is like, what in the world is that, right? It's like computing. It looks like a set of algorithms, if anything, right? And you see in classical, then at the bottom, it says man versus God, because a lot of people were talking about God, right? And they understood God perhaps more because they were closer to nature to an extent, and which is why we're proving a lot of the past to be correct. And then you have in the middle man versus no God, because they feel like, oh, all this God talk has just turned into worse. Obviously, modern religions have steered clear from objective morality and things that people can actually understand, and they want money, which is really counterintuitive, counterproductive. They do practices that are clearly not in the best interest of their cause. There's a whole bunch of problems with modern religion. So it actually is causing people to have no God, especially since they are obsessing over technology and scientism. So that makes sense too. And then you have postmodern, which is man versus author, right? It's like you have so many right now, so many people who are writing, or so many people who are reading, and not enough people actually listening, or not enough people who are actually writing. So it's like you have this conflict then of creation, right? Because technology is a creation and a book is a creation, for example. So this is a really accurate picture for all of society to understand. And I think the best thing we need to do is man versus self to man versus reality. Except versus reality, we should know what that reality is. Because if we have a system where government is taking control and continues to, technology also continues to take control, we're actually not going to know, frankly, what our reality is. We're going to be deceived moreover than we already are of what the truth is. Like, people just think it just comes from their mind, that there's no objective truth, right? So the people are going to be even more confused as to that. And it's either they follow technology or they go against it, and they have to find themselves because technology seeks to replace themselves. And you have this situation where it's just full of ironies because technology is an imitation of the human mind, being that we created it. And it is so perfectly emulative of the human mind that it creates more danger. So man versus reality is exactly what it is. But which reality is it? Is it the reality of technology? Is it the reality of a fake reality, an illusion? Is it actually going against reality, which we know reality is always here, right? It's just a matter if we accept it. But I'm saying, like, on a mental level, which reality are we accepting? I want us to accept the real reality, obviously, the one that comes from nature. The one that understands classical, modern, and postmodern, all three, because we see how important all three are. How it's man versus nature, and it's also man versus society, and it's also man versus technology, and it's also man versus government, right? I could change this postmodern and say, okay, it could be man versus government, man versus real reality, and then as for the author, well, we'll just leave that be, because that's that may happen as well. You have so many things existent. You have this person who's getting mad about somebody writing. I'm honestly not too sure about what that represents. If somebody wants to clarify on that, but this is a perfect picture, I think, to talking about the condition of our world and where it's leading. You have here, quote, "I love spending time in nature. It doesn't judge," right? All these people are always judging each other for this and that, and it just causes more division. I think perhaps we had some quotes in the past about judgment, so something to just look upon if you want, but understand that you have to live present, right? You don't want to always point the finger, is generally the premises I've been presenting. And you have that as a quote as by Katrina Mayer. Who doesn't love spending time in nature? There's also this quote, "All good things are wild and free." Yes, as trendy as that may be too, I mean, that is just simply the truth. All good things are wild and free. They just, have fun. They do whatever. And, it's their own demise. It's their own problem if they do something bad. We can talk to them and, try to help them in the right direction if we feel like we have to, and it's a moral obligation to do so. But I mean, people are free to do as they wish. We're not going to force them to do anything they don't want. That would be preposterous. So why would you believe in a government that forces people to act a certain way if you wouldn't do that yourself? There's a difference there, and an understanding as well. But looking at all the evidence that we've gathered so far among all this, it's starting, and it should be more apparent to you, hopefully. See, there's a quote here: you don't need religion to have morals. If you can't determine right from wrong, then you lack empathy, not religion. This is key. The left and right brain. Is that ever talked about in religion? Just the natural laws that be, the centrist view of understanding where all these religions come from, and that a lot of it is simply from nature, and that nature is his representation of God, if anything. So if you want to work with God, you work with nature. I mean, do we understand that? A lot of these are ancient symbols, and sure, they may come from very, very well-known backgrounds and so forth, but look at the premises, right? You have the yin and yang there. You have the right and left brain triangles for the star there, and I don't know, there are a whole bunch of symbols here that all represent different forms essentially of consciousness, of the golden rule of natural law, which is the premises to all of this. So when you understand natural law through all the quotes that I portrayed and all the documentaries that we've shown, I mean, this is just amazing. What we can come up with here is that nature is the answer essentially in almost every case or scenario. So if we were to then look at deism, which is considered the center path, the centrist worldview, you have here, this is the perfect description for it. Simple deism is the balanced worldview that far too often goes completely ignored in the dialectical war between atheism and religion. So people are either religious or they're atheists nowadays, and there's a heck lot of atheists growing. I'll tell you that, right? Especially with science and the growth, scientism and Scientology and all this other stuff, right? Which, some people even want to create religions because it makes them money and it creates a cult-like following. This is not something that people should want to do. And so just understand this is also a slide from Mark Passio, the teacher of natural law. And it makes sense that he would talk about deism as well, something that I've also come across because I see it as very accordingly to what we've been saying. And again, previous people, philosophers that we went over, were also themselves very much deist in their worldview. Okay, you have here, quote, there is no separation between the creator and creation. They are one. Okay, then there's evidence of the creator may be scientifically discovered and known through the observable effects of universal law. Okay, it makes sense so far, right? So the evidence is through the natural law. It's through understanding the natural law. There's no separation between the creator and creation. They are one because they are here all for a reason, as everything is with a reason. And you have here neither the physical nor spiritual domains take precedence over the other. In essence, they are one and the same. Right? They all exist about. Then you have here the universe is a place of learning and in a spiritual growth built upon law for the benefit of all. So the universe is a place of learning. So for education, for knowledge, all those things we said are really important. Spiritual growth, essentially, built upon law for the benefit of all. Okay, even in integrative nutrition, they consider spirituality a key part of health. It's having a spirituality because it keeps your mind aligned and toward the right goals, right? It makes sense. If you're looking at this from a deist point of view, you're looking at things in the center. You're trying to understand the left and right brain. You're understanding the natural laws. You're understanding that everything is connected here. And that allows you to want to just expand paths here and branch upon this great tree that we've built. You have here then, it also says natural law, behavioral consequences are in place for a maximum of evolutionary progress. So if we want to make progress in this world and we want to change the world, it's through understanding natural law, because it shows us what our consequences are. Through understanding cause and effect, through understanding the law of attraction, all the different terms for natural law, God's law, essentially. And it's the place for maximum evolutionary progress. Okay, so if we want the most change, the most potential, the most possibility is through understanding the natural law. For that's how also, again, how we've gotten controlled over this system. But it's also how we can gain control of ourselves over the system, so we can truly rule the system by ourselves, which is our own system, our own body, not other bodies, not other people, and not creating systems over other people, because that wouldn't make sense to the natural law. And so again, if you want to take this then from the Declaration of Independence, looking at America's foundation, although again the premises behind it was okay, the foundation was very cool, to where people today can still agree with it. I can still agree with many aspects of it. The very nature of government is what is very questionable here, okay? That's the question that we're asking, okay? But understand that they had an understanding of natural law, but not to the extent of understanding government to that much. They wanted to limit the government. They thought by limiting the government that would help. But how would they ensure that for generations upon time? There was no way, as we previously mentioned and have discussed and also have addressed within the first documentary, okay? Have here, quote, from the Declaration of Independence: when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay, so the laws of nature and of nature's God. It says it right there in the Declaration of Independence. And it's also saying here that if it's necessary to dissolve the government and allow people to basically, become independent for oneself, then they shall do so. And so this Declaration of Independence was historical as a step in the right direction toward nature. Now it's time to take another step in the right direction toward nature and realize that we all have to come together to agree upon even what the Declaration of Independence has said itself. Thank you for watching this video. Feel free to subscribe, like, and do whatever you wish. It's up to you. You are free in this life, and if you want to know how to change the world truly, please, I encourage you to check out my website, Nita.one. It's here for all of us, actually. It's not my website. It is my website, but it isn't. It's here for us all. We're all messengers. We're all fellow human beings. Let's change the world truly, and we can do it with Nita.one. Nature's the answer.